Life. Excellent. Hello, Kevin. Hello, everybody else.
Good
This is the
evening.
first time streaming everywhere onto the interwebs. We're live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter. Have I forgotten one? I think that's all of them. Excellent. So do reach out. We're here for the next hour talking about climate action with my co host, Gavin, and I've got a very special drink today. I've got something called Madison's West Coast IPA. Not sponsored by them. I just thought I'd crack open a very special can of craft, well, IPA in this case. Does it count as an ale?
Who knows? I'm
Or
to me.
is IPA different? I'm very ignorant. I just drink this stuff. Gavin, good to see you back.
Thanks for
Last
having me
week
back.
we talked about loads of wonderful stats. You had amazing stats for us,
Oh,
and I think we
okay.
settled on one thing that, if I remember correctly, we talked about what if. You can remind us of the stats in 1 second, but we talked about what if everybody reduced their kind of carbon emissions by 1 ton a year,
Yep.
which to me, even 1 ton, knowing how much roughly 1 ton looks like on the road, which is about the size of a medium saloon car, I think, that's a lot.
But it's but when you think of it, that's about 8% for the average adult. So 8%.
We're
That
saving 8%. That's the goal.
Yeah, that would be a ton because in the UK you have about 12 tons a year. So if you can actually reduce yourself by 1 ton a year, in America it's 25 tons per head. So if they can reduce by 1 ton, the United
Wow.
Arab Emirates, it's
Sorry,
35,
let's just recap that. It was 16 tons for the UK average.
12 for the UK
Well,
average without any flight. Average UK adult.
and more than twice that for the Americans.
Yeah. America's 25 tons per head.
What are they doing worse than we are doing? Because even
Just
even 12
higher,
tons strikes me as a
far
lot.
higher use of fossil fuels. I mean, there's more. I think there's more biodigesters in the UK than there is in the whole of America. They're just slightly behind the curve on the technologies that actually that normalized out there. And then if you go into the UAE, you're at 35 tons a head
Jesus Christ.
because
Sorry to swear, and I'll refrain from using coarse language, but that is insane.
but it's also a lifestyle. You know, that's people living in a desert, so they're living with air conditioning, and so some people, because there are two schools of thought that those people are terrible because they're consuming so much, or should we be focusing efforts? Should we just accept that people are going to use air conditioning, so we need to find an environmentally friendly way of doing it?
Is it the car driving? Is it the industry, or is it lifestyle choices? Like, well, air conditioning, I don't think is a lifestyle choice in the
No,
UAE, but
no.
because it's so very very hot over there.
Yeah, and you need a lot of resource for pumping stuff around. There's, you're working with sand, and you're in a desert, so it's far more, and all the materials have to be brought in and laid. So you haven't, you're not just getting any materials from locally for building anything. So yeah, far higher footprint. But
Do
then
you
at the end,
think? Do you think that stuff like the strip, I think they called it, that interesting city building project where they said we're gonna not have a normal city, we're just gonna
neon,
have a very long one. Is
yeah.
that gonna help?
Well, I was just looking it up just to remember, make sure I got the NEOM, NEOM, the NEOM project. It's interesting. Um, as with everything, you have to kind of give people credit for trying. But when they started out, they were using electric, or they're still using electric diggers and electric plant for what they're doing.
Mm.
But because they didn't have the solar hooked up yet, they took generators out into the desert to charge the electric diggers. So, and also you have to say, okay, the size of the project is very ambitious. The concept of it is very ambitious, but do we really need to dump hundreds of millions of tons of concrete in the desert, or can we already take something that's already there and make it better? It's a difficult, because in China there's 23 smart cities which will all have automated transport, no cars, very small
Smart cities.
Yeah, and the smart
Milton Keynes.
But if you imagine the next generation, so everything runs. There's automated transport for everything. Everything is interconnected. Your recycling goes down chute. It's all fully connected.
Wait, they've got 23, Gavin.
23 are either in planning or under construction at the moment in China, because they've got to the Chinese. However you view them, the Chinese are very industrious. Because when I used to go out to China, they used to talk about the 1-3-5 plan. 1 year was to plan it, 3 years was to build it, 5 years you shouldn't even know that it's a new project. It should just blend in.
Wow.
And that's how they built bridges and roads, because obviously in China they can make these decisions and just say, right, we're not building any more new cities. All the new cities are going to be smart cities. That is the rule. Which, however you kind of view it, can be a challenging view of things, but also it gets decisions made.
It's not all bad, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into this whole China situation.
We should avoid that. I
don't want to get. I don't need to make friends, unfriends, I guess. No, I think there's something to be said for having the benefit of that setup where you can just say, look, we're just going to build this way. It obviously has some drawbacks as well, but if we map that to Milton Keynes, which is supposedly quite a forward-thinking, very young city, 50 years old. Was it this year or last year? I think it was this year.
55, I think now, 67. So next year is so this year's 55, 23rd of January, I think.
Somebody help us in the comments.
Yeah, I'm sure it was the 23rd of January 1967 where it actually where it got its status.
But why are we not doing that here? Because we're talking about reducing this 12 tons, which, by comparison with the heavy hitters is obviously not that bad, but it's still pretty bad for, a country, if we look at the UK as a whole, that said, we're going to be very forward thinking and modern and green. It's going to be sustainable, everything. It's like, well, hang on. China's got 23 smart cities. UAE are trying to build a whole new everything in a very different way from the ground up. I mean, there's this city in the desert. I can't remember whether it's Dubai or UAE or something.
That's the long city. That's
that's the one that you meant. Yeah. Where you have like it's literally a city in the middle of the desert. Where, if I remember, they've got these self-driving cars or pods under the city and in this park and ride system, and it's all pedestrianized. Milton Keynes just been to the centre. The only green thing are, I would say, semi-fake plants in the centre. That's the green you got.
They're very offended by that. It's all real plants in the centre.
They're all real plants. Look, you have me there.
Yeah. I've probably got a dull stat about how many plants are in there. But anyway.
Do you think then that if we did something, if we took a leaf out of, no pun intended, out of the Chinese playbook and said, we're going to be a bit smarter with our cities, and we say, okay, in Milton Keynes, the new Santander building, instead of having it just glass, steel, and concrete, we use different building methods, perhaps, or we, stipulate that the facade needs to be less glass, which reflects sunlight and everything else, but less glass and more greenery.
You can, but the challenge with there's always a challenge with telling people what to do, with asking for change, because there will always be somebody that will, and this is part of the reason that we're paralyzed, and it's also the reason that people go out and glue their faces to roads and 92-year-old grannies, walk from London to Scotland for the COP26, because people are actually desperate for movement to happen. But the problem is, realistically, we're not. Today, our Prime Minister flew in a private jet that cost £7,500 a day to have parked up. He then flew to Edinburgh, flew to Manchester, and flew back to London. All serviceable by train.
Knowing the British train system, though, it will probably have only gotten to one of its destinations.
There was I saw the president of I think it was Macedonia the other day, whose daughter was being bullied at school or something as a Down syndrome daughter, and he walked her to school. So
Speaking of school runs and extraneous, is that the right word I'm looking for here? Car use. Is it Johnny, the car pervert
oh yeah,
from Fully
you're
Charged?
charged. Yeah,
Johnny, yeah, I love him. And he had a little rant while he was sitting in a car. I'm not sure whether you saw it. About in his village, I think that there's a particular member of the community who's driving their kids to school in a massive diesel
yeah,
burning and CO2 spewing Land Rover or Range Rover even. 100 meters. 100 meters from his store to the school to drop his kids off. I mean, how unsafe are the streets in that village that
yeah.
he felt it necessary to drive that distance in a. I mean, the engine isn't even turned over twice before he gets there, right?
Yeah, but I think that kind of goes back to, our point about kind of people taking planes instead of buses. If you make transport accessible and good, people use it. It's I was lucky enough to be in Switzerland last year, and I love going to Switzerland. Citymapper app in hand, bang. You can find the train. You arrive somewhere, find a scooter. It just works. And things run on time, and the stations are clean, and it's far more affordable. We have one of the highest costs of public transport, in Europe. Well, we're not in Europe anymore, but we're more expensive than Europe.
Well, our neighbours, our cousins in Europe are certainly leading the way. In even though that our government likes to say we are all kind of top whatever, we're not really. We're quite behind in some of these cases. And I think we touched on going back to the original point about saving 1 ton per person per year.
Yeah.
Using more public transport is one major factor. Using your car less.
I mean, you said about Milton Keynes specifically, because you were saying how should we be a smart city, all those kind of things. I've always thought that the red routes are way underutilized. Anytime that I've cycled on them, or used my scooter on them, nigh on deserted. I mean,
you barely have any in Bletchley. This is the thing that annoys me. I have to drive down. I've got a hybrid, so I mostly drive around on fully electric, thankfully, and only the longer distances on petrol. But I have to drive down to pick up my kids because the pavement is so narrow that 2 people can barely pass, let alone cycling, because it is unsafe by design almost. There's no. Because it is the old village, or one of the 3 villages that make up Milton Keynes, small towns even, there isn't anything to get around. And I'm not sure whether you saw, there was another post, I think, yesterday about building this whole weird paradox where the roads are congested, so we build more roads, so we get more cars, so they're congested again. We build bigger roads, they get more congested again. And people use the public transport or cycling or walking less because you need to give up the pavements and the red roads and or redways and all of those things to accommodate all the cars. So should we actually flip it and say we do less roads and more kind of cycle path and stuff, and maybe then people will use them more?
I hope so. There was an initiative, or has been an initiative from Buckingham down to Winslow, where the new station's being built, and they've already put a cycle route, so you can cycle from Buckingham to Winslow, not on the road.
Wow, that sounds very safe.
Which I think is a great idea, because I enjoy using public transport where it's available, but when it's I mean I'm going up to Scotland in June for my nephew's wedding, and it is cheaper to fly than to take the train for a family of 4.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That it shouldn't be like that, because the tonnage of a single flight, to Glasgow is massive compared to the tonnage of a single train. but it's also kind of optimizing it, because if you have a transport system that people know works, people use it. Yeah, again, I go back to my example. In Switzerland, it just all works. All the stations are very clean. There's information, et cetera, et cetera. And the platforms are big enough. It's very, they're very easy to use, as opposed to in the UK, where we still have many tube stations that are inaccessible to wheelchairs, and even an average wheelchair user, even using Milton Keynes, which has got the lifts down to the platform, so you do have a single level in, and then you're straight down. You still have to phone somebody, book, make sure that you're on the right bit of the platform. Yes. Somebody's got to blow a whistle, put out a little ramp. No, trains should be built with ramps in them.
That sounds terribly hostile by design almost.
Yes. I was reading a tweet this morning about a wheelchair user who was refused entry to a bus because they have this one space on the bottom of a double decker, and there was a buggy in it. And this wheelchair user said, well, actually, no, I'll be able to get in as well. And the guy refused her. And she was like, well, you can't refuse me. I can get on the bus and I can get out of people's way. And because he couldn't put her in the designated spot, no. But accessibility like that, if you put in a lowering ramp, it means that people with pushchairs makes that easier. If you're walking with a stick, it makes that easier. If you're slightly unfirm on your feet, it makes that easier. So it kind of goes back to one of the core problems of people being green, because we were talking about do we force people, do we get them? That's one of the problems. One of the core problems is we can't. It's very difficult to set the agendas, because we saw the Kyoto Agreement, the Paris Agreement, targets that have just been ignored. To all intents and purposes. I praise all the work that's being done, but we just can't have countries saying, well, no, it's going to be 2070. Oh, we'll do it 2050. We're going to do it 2035. But then it's all a little bit greenwashed when you start kind of there was a thing, I don't know if you read last week, where the EU was trying to recategorize nuclear power as sustainable, so people get carbon credit off it.
Or green gas. And what was the other thing that was, again, on the fully charged feed? I think Robert Llewellyn posted, I think it was a photo of something that said green diesel or something like that. Was it's like, what? We can't just slap a green anything on something. And I know there's a lot of people who, it's in the Green Party, there's a whole group of them who feel that nuclear power is, much greener than coal. And yes, there is absolutely. Nuclear power is greener than coal and gas and oil, but we are nowhere near a solution to do, to treat the waste or store the waste safely. I think that ship has sailed. It's fusion power maybe to the rescue at some point, but right now, we have a massive investment in green energy, which is great. My home right now is being powered by green energy. I think one of the issues we're having in this country is storing all of that power. There's only so much pumped hydro that we've got, that large capacity in the system. So I think maybe there needs to be more micro generation. There may need to be more of an uptake of plug-in electric vehicles that act as a battery buffer for the grid. Where the car can send power back to the grid, and it's like there's a lot more. And I always think that there's a lot of good in what we're talking about, a lot of good that people are planning, but then there's never enough follow through. It's the same with the plastic bag ban and all of these things. Or we're going one step, or we're going two steps, but we're going one step back, or we're just dipping our toe in the water and then going like, that's enough, that's green enough, I've done my bit. It's like I've recycled one pudding container today,
yes.
So I'll be fine.
Yogurt pot,
that's it. We might need to go a little bit further to reach that 1 ton per person per year. Then, so more public transport, more green buildings. I mean, there isn't one. Do you know a green building? I've seen one in London that had a wall that was just like green stuff.
I mean, there are a couple that have been fairly pioneering. There was a very early one, believe it or not. And you know, this is not a great fact, but in Alton's, just outside Aberdeen, in the 80s, that was one of the very first green buildings. Guess who owned it? Shell.
Shell.
It was the Scottish head office of Shell, and they invested in insulation and heat, regenerative systems, etc. But that's one of the problems of greenwashing. You know, it's.
Don't get me started talking about oil companies doing green stuff, because it is a pet peeve of mine.
But focusing on the small things that people can do.
Yeah,
there are things, tiny things can make a massive difference. You know, a bamboo toothbrush. You know, a toothpaste that's not in a tube. You know, there's lots of toothpaste. So you can,
and stuff.
Hair, the bars, shampoo, hair shampoo bars. You know, these are things that, because the thing about because people say to me, well, being green must cost more. Well, no, I spend less on my heating. I spend, because I've invested in insulation, and tends to be recycling, reusing, and being sensible actually saves you money. But part of the driver is it's because green is not seen as being profitable. Green is, the problem is green is being seen as a punishment by a lot of people. I can't have this because of, I can't have this because of. That whole thing needs reframing. People talk about their carbon footprint, what from the oil that is in your car that BP took out, that the government got tax from, and that somebody owns the oil field for. But you're the one that is naughty and using it, so you have to pay the guilt. This all has to be reframed, and even things like using bars. Each person that gave up using shampoo bottles, there's a huge impact, because people aren't going to go backwards to it. And also it drives the economics of change, because if we keep buying plastic shampoo bottles, Procter and Gamble will keep making plastic shampoo bottles. If we all start buying bars in paper wrappings to wash our hair with, Procter and Gamble will start making bars in paper wrappers for us to wash the hair.
That's it. That's a great point. Have you seen what Colgate, I think, did on the back of this whole tube backlash that happened, I think, back end of last year? They now print that they're on their packaging that their plastic tubes are sustainable, or they're recyclable. It's like just putting a logo on there that says I'm recyclable, or please recycle me, or please save some water. It's not really going to help, because it's not recyclable unless you wash it out and you check very carefully whether that type of plastic is actually recycled by your local council, which I think is another big oversight in this country, where we have so many different systems. It's really, really confusing.
Yes, that is bad, because I think it was Germany that pioneered the green dot system, wasn't it?
Yes, the green dot. I remember it vividly. I was actually in Germany when they introduced it, and there was a lot of backlash. There was a lot of backlash against the charges for plastic bags, the deposits on cans and glass bottles and stuff. But it's been probably, I don't know, 15 years now, or whatever, however long it's been, and it's just, you get used to it, and you have to make that decision. It's going back to the whole China thing. You sometimes have to just go and say, no, we this is the right thing to do. And I know that in this country there was a big upheaval about the charge for carrier bags, and it's come on, you're not losing your freedom, because you can still buy the blooming things. It's just the same in Germany. You can choose not to recycle. You can choose to not return the tin or the glass bottle, but then you lose your deposit. tough.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a polluter, if you want to go against the grain of what's right and proper and morally and ethically, I think what you should be doing, then yeah, you should pay an extra tax. Hence why I'm a big fan of taxation and taxation
Yeah.
of people who drive the massive cars and who do the big pollution. And well, sadly, we're not in a position with our government to have any of these things happen, do we?
But that's one of the challenges. Again, should somebody. So it was like what we were talking about last week. People will still buy luxury handbags, so let's make luxury handbags out of something different than really rare animals that somebody's shot or jacked. Let's make them out of cool recycled fire hoses and weird stuff. So the problem isn't really with the person that has watched the advert, drank the Kool-Aid, and believes that and earns enough to be able to actually buy a big 4x4. The problem's further upstream, from oil companies making record profits, from car companies telling us we need a new car every year, to now saying we need to throw away all those cars and actually all need to buy electric cars. There was an interesting study done. I wish I'd actually forwarded it on to you, where somebody worked out what had happened if just all the car companies were stopped from making cars, just at like 12 o'clock, bang, no more new cars. And the saving in the consumption, if you imagine all the global car companies shutting down, and we just had to maintain the cars that we had here already, the cars, the trucks, the buses. Some, obviously innovate with safety, etc. That would actually be cleaner than actually allowing the car industry to reinvent themselves as an electric car industry.
We're going back. Oh, absolutely right. We should go. We talked about this last week. We should go back to this whole mindset of culture of, I don't need to have the latest, greatest. I don't need to drive a new car every year. I don't need to get myself into debt and destroy the planet and the environment. I just need to look after what I've got. But I want to go back on one thing that you said earlier. Is like, how do we reframe this perception and this culture then? What do we need to do? How can we change people's perception of what they should be doing?
Well, it's where the value sits, because the perception is in the value sits in the glorification of owning something. I own a big white Range Rover. I own a big house. I don't actually.
Well, you do have a big white SUV and you have a big house,
but it's not a Range Rover, and I do have a house. So it reframing it, I think, is allowing people to two things. People have to understand whose responsibility it is. So when I do business with people, I ask about their approach to environmentalism, and if it doesn't match mine, I don't work with them. Some people would say, yeah, that's fine, they don't want to work with you anyway, but irrelevant. The shops I shop at, the companies I use, the products I buy, one of all of our weapons is our wallet. It's one of the strongest ones, and so I think people have got to come out of because in the 80s and the 90s, consumerism was driven heavily, and unfortunately, certainly in the UK, we have built our industry on a service economy. So getting a cab to a restaurant to be served, to go see a film, to go to a bar, to buy drinks, to be driven home.
Gosh, I haven't done that for years.
Thanks, our economy is,
yeah.
We're not the world's biggest manufacturer of anything.
So what do you think then about what happened, for example, 2 episodes ago, I think, on The Apprentice, where somebody said, they were designing a computer game, I think, or mobile game, whatever, and somebody basically suggested that sustainability and environmentalism is basically on trend. Saving the penguins in the Arctic is on trend. Can climate change ever be? Should it be a trend thing, or should it be something that is positioned outside of trends?
I think of the view of all press is good press. If that allows us for 1 or 2 more people to become slightly more educated about having less things to throw away, having more things going in the recycling, And just it, because IKEA, I think, officially opened the second store, whatever, where you can, in the UK, where you can sell your furniture back and recycle it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, I think, one of the big brands, I can't remember if it's Louis Vuitton, somebody's got a recycling scheme, or Gucci or somebody, where you can hand your stuff back and you get paid for it. That needs to happen more, because the challenges are at the peak, where we have all these corporations. So we've got, I don't know, quite a small amount of corporations, running about 40-50% of the finances of the world. Those are the corporations that need to actually change, because it's not about earning lots of money for very few people, and that's one of the pivots that's got to happen. I know very few rich, or not very few. Well, actually, I do know a couple of multimillionaire active environments, but they are the exception to the rule. They don't have the level of consumption, an acceptable consumption. Whilst we still actually think, somebody wearing an expensive designer outfit, wearing expensive sunglasses, sitting on the bonnet of an expensive car is living their best life, we're not going to win. You can still live your best life wearing any pair of glasses, sitting on the bonnet of any car, smiling at your friends. That's cool, and you're allowed to wear wherever you want.
Maybe we need to do an anti-Instagram kind of campaign, where we take a picture from an influencer sitting on their, I don't know, fancy car with the fancy shades and the fancy sunshine. That's all fake, and we do one that is exactly like that, but with a real car.
There's a woman that does that on Instagram. She parodies all the celebrities. But the point being,
awesome. Okay, what's her name?
I can't remember actually. I'll look up. But she does all the kind of famous poses.
Yeah,
very funny. But it kind of goes back to my point of where we can't be authoritarian about this. We can't force people. We can't. What we've got to do is, that Instagrammer has got to be re-educated. It's got to be shown the light, kind of thing.
So what you're saying is not Room 101, but we need to be very open and kind to them. Like a previous colleague of mine said, smother them with kindness rather than punish.
Well, it's got to lean both ways, to be honest. On the green side, we have to accept that rich people will buy big cars. We have to accept that people will spend 800 quid in a handbag and £1,000 on a pair of sunglasses. So how can we support those businesses being cool and environmentally friendly? And then on the other side, we have to get the people that buy a new car every year, or PCP, the new car every year. We have to stop them changing their cars. We have to stop them with disposable fashion. So there's a little bit of lean in required on both sides. I know, if any of our green compadres are watching this, they'll probably be screaming at the screen saying, well, I'm doing everything and they're doing nothing. But unity is the way forward, not division. And if anything that current geopolitics has taught us, division will not get any solutions to anything. The old wounds will open up. It will all come back. We're on the same merry-go-round, at the moment with, is there going to be a war in Ukraine? You could also actually say, is there going to be an enormous wages bonus for all British companies that work in the defense industry in September? Oh, we're not allowed to call it like that. We're supposed to think our brave politicians are. No, there's no battle there. I'm very doubtful if Russia will actually invade, but the theatre and focus and consumption of it. Anyway, I'm getting distracted on lack of unity. But
it's an interesting tangent. Yeah, we were talking about let's stay positive about
so unity,
impact, small actions everybody can take, like changing their toothpaste, looking after the car you have rather than buying a new car.
But we need more
encouraging people, perhaps on the local councils, to I don't know, encourage the big building companies to actually build some innovative, smarter cities in buildings, starting with reducing the amount of concrete we pour everywhere.
We also need, Greta Thunberg for each generation, because she's been somebody that's actually brought the youth together, all the youth, and whatever your view of her, I think she's very certainly inspirational, because other young kids around the world can say, yes, there's another one of those kids that doesn't get listened to like me. If mommy and daddy are going to listen to her on the TV, maybe they'll listen to me about wanting, that we have the recycling, wanting to do this, wanting to do that. But we don't have the Greta Thunbergs certainly for my generation or your generation.
Who is it for our generation or my generation? Is it George Monbiot people?
Possibly, but there are very few and far between out there. I mean, even apart from, okay, if we take Leonardo DiCaprio off the list, name.
Why?
No, hang on, let me finish. Name a celebrity that is at the bastion of leading the Green Revolution. Somebody that's using their voice for good.
Oh, no, now I've got the wrong name on the tip of my tongue. This is annoying. Keanu Reeves. He's very, very
I would say more ethical,
but not perhaps with environmentalism. I don't really know whether he strikes me as somebody who would, help an injured bird or fallen out of the nest or drive an electric car or whatever. But I don't know. Leonardo, does it have to be a celebrity? Because one thing that I really, really like about Greta is she is genuinely a person who's concerned about these things. She's not a celebrity using a platform. She's not a politician trying to score points. She's just Greta. Do we need more people like that who are just like Greta and are that inspirational and saying the right stuff?
It takes us back to our Instagram perfect life discussion. We need those people to influence those people. So if for example it became a trend at awards ceremonies to wear a hired outfit or a second-hand outfit, what would that do? That
sends a good message. Is what it does. I would say.
It shouldn't just be Coldplay shouldn't be the only ones, because I know Coldplay are working really, really hard to work out how they can actually go and entertain fans and not destroy the planet out of it. We should be thinking about things like that. People like that, but again, it goes back to the normalization. I just want to see, what's it called? Grande.
Ariana Grande.
I want to see Ariana Grande saying, these are secondhand boots I bought from the charity shop because it saves the planet. Imagine the impact. We're talking about the 1 tons. Imagine, 20 million Ariana Grande fans, storming the charity shops and buying all the boots. How cool would that be? Apart from for charity shops and recycling and all the rest of it, then more people will give to charity shops and charity shops leading into fantasy. But that's my point. We can say, let's get consensus, and a little group over here can be worthy and come up with the right plans. To be pragmatic and be realistic about it, we need volume. We need hundreds, thousands, millions, actually billions doing something about the planet. And so that reframing is actually about a celebrity saying I bought these boots from Oxfam, is about a celebrity saying that they've kept their car for or they've bought their father's car, and they're still going to be using that. It's trying to kind of show by example that we don't need to consume. Unfortunately, capitalism is based on a consuming culture. You use, you throw away, you reuse. The basics of manufacturing, because manufacturing never actually had any recycling. When Henry Ford came up with the production line, he didn't have another way of actually taking them apart and reusing them again. So we've never factored into production. You just raw materials, make something, sell it, bye-bye, rather than actually having a culture where you maintain it, or it goes back to the shop and gets refurbished, or it gets a new motor into it. Those are the things that I think shift the framing. But then you get back to the challenge again of, are you going to get Bosch or Hoover or Whirlpool to make their product 10-20% better in the weight of bearings and steel that they use, so they can lose future sales.
Aren't they similar to what Apple has been brandished? Is it brandished? They've been told off to the tunes of millions in class action suits for building in obsolescence into their products by throttling the performance. And I just had a discussion, in fact, with somebody where their phone is basically almost dead, and it's like, I've got storage space, and yes, the battery only has 65% capacity or something, but why is it basically not letting me do anything? It's no longer got the same level overall performance and utility as when I bought it. And I mean, it's a shame that, you know, buying a high quality product has to come with a price and a lot of drawbacks. Like, I was really looking forward to changing my phone, my daily driver, to a Fairphone, which is one of the three, I think, brands who not only are they the only one who are completely ethical and transparent in their supply chain and you know, fully recyclable, and they in fact have a buyback scheme, but they're also fully modular, which means you don't have to throw it away. However, it's a very mediocre phone still. It is not anywhere near the same performance that even, you know, a mid-range phone had 3 years ago. So it's a and then it costs twice what I just paid for a 1-year-old Android mid-range phone, which is, I get better utility out of that thing than the old Apple, because my old Apple phone is now serving as a camera, because the battery costs £100 to replace. Nobody else can replace it because you have to do it via Apple if you really want it not blowing up in your face. And everything is glued together and built in such a way that really you can either give it back to the person and then they basically shred it, or it just ends up in the bin. And this is disgusting. It's like this, you know, the idea of everybody having a new mobile phone every year, and apart from the insane amount of money we're all wasting on this, it is e-waste. It is not just hazardous chemicals in there gluing stuff together when it should have been a screw, but it's also so botched together that the children on the rubbish heaps of the world, sadly that is a real thing, go through our e-waste that gets shipped off to you know, South America or Africa or Asia even. You know, they look at this old iPhone and they're thinking, I can't do anything with this because it's all so built to be just discarded. It's that I really want people to realize that their phone habit, their, you know, £800 a year phone is killing us, because it is not sustainable. The product isn't designed, let alone your washing machine. You know, and even then, if you compare the washing machine my mum had back, I don't know when she bought it, in the 70s or 80s, that lasted 25 years and got repaired every 5 years when something, you know, wore out, to the stuff we've got now. It's like, when my washing machine broke, I had the local repair shop look at it and they're saying, might as well buy a new one, mate. It's cheaper. It's ridiculous.
But you can, even because we finally retired our cooker about a year ago, and we got 25 years out of that. There was a couple of repairs to it.
Is that a good lifespan for a cooker?
I would say that's fairly respectable. But when it faltered, it was repaired. Because I've only ever owned one toaster. I was lucky that when I got married, we were given a Dualit toaster, and it's had a couple of sets of innards and a new switch knob on it, but it's still the same one.
Where do you get it repaired though? I mean, washing machine, I know where to go, but a toaster?
eSpares. What, you haven't been on eSpares?
I have been on eSpares, Gavin. Thank you for that plug. Not affiliated.
Yeah, not affiliated, but you want to sponsor it? No.
But you have to do it yourself, right?
Yes. I mean, I found a local guy that put in a new heating element and did the door, and that was 130 quid all in.
What did you look for? Did you look for toaster repairs, Milton Keynes or something?
No, toasters. I just went to eSpares and bought the parts.
And then how did you go about finding somebody who could fix it for you?
Oh no, the toaster I did myself. The cooker I found somebody locally. I just did
Wow.
a search locally and found somebody there
I
because
mean,
they're
this going back to the ride to repair conversation we had last week, which is all about companies should be, from my point of view, companies should be strongly encouraged in no uncertain terms to make their products, recyclable for sure, but repairable. Like John Deere got really dragged through the media if you're into your tractors and
uh,
you have an eye on agriculture, like some people. Basically the farmers couldn't fix their own farming gear, which if you're in
yeah.
the middle of the countryside trying to get the harvest in and you have to call somebody in God knows where and then wait a week for a part to arrive and it
Yeah.
can only be that guy to fix it, you're screwed and you might lose an entire harvest in the worst case. But with a mobile phone or computer or toaster for that matter, they should all be repairable easily. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Well, they've
do
done the
we
same to
is it
cars.
education though as well? Is it to for our children growing up learning to fix things rather than just buy a new thing when it breaks?
I think it's consumers wanting, things, wanting things that are of better quality, wanting things that are going to last longer, because I mean, your point about the John Deere tractors is exactly the same as what they've done with people's cars. Yeah,
Mm.
something goes wrong, little light flashes, and no
It's
idea.
like Apple, the Apple
Yeah.
of agricultural
But
equipment.
my old Sebring, that's now what, 50 years old now.
Mm.
I carry two fuses, a bit of masking tape, a set of screwdrivers, and some cable ties, and even if it does break down, that you can just get under the hood and say, "Oh, it's that bit that's wrong." Tighten, do whatever, go. That car has now been running, or certainly for me, it's been a daily driver for what, 5 years now.
Mhm.
And it was 45 years when I bought it. It's coming up for it's 49 this year, it'll be 50 next year. Doesn't do a huge amount of miles, but that again is an example of making things sustainable. Should you, so if you had a really old, let's say you had a 20-year-old Mini, should you throw it in the bin, or should you spend a couple of £1,000 just getting all the bits? I spend proper money. Maybe on the car's worth £500.
Mm-hmm.
You spend £1,500 on getting another 5 years running out of it, or should you scrap it and buy an electric car?
Well, you can't buy an electric car for anything less than like 8 or
Well,
9
you could
grand.
do your monthly repayment thing. Let's say. But as a principle, people see old cars as being disposable. And
I see them as being dirty because a lot of them aren't maintained properly. So they burn, oil, for example, and you get the nice smoke coming out of the tailpipe. I think that there's a key message here, which is all about maintaining what you've got to keep it in good order and not just run it into the ground.
Yeah, I think so, because I mean it's we're kind of going around the subject of what one by one, ton by ton, something like but even in cars, if you actually have the correct tire pressure, you get more miles to the gallon and you do less emissions.
Yeah.
So how many cars do you drive? I do all the time. You drive behind a car and you see a soft tire, and you kind of think, well, that's not only that's leaving more rubber on the road, that's
Literally.
consuming more fuel, and it's all these little things. So if we just take a little bit more care to choose a toothpaste that's not in a tube, and sometimes the green products could be better than the original. I recommended one today. My favorite, I have a new favorite flossing thing. So I like flossing my teeth, and I hate plastic. So I went down to our local top up and recycle shop in Stony High Street and bought some cotton with charcoal a tooth floss. Oh my God. That just leaves that plastic crap in the dark ages.
I shall try it out.
Not
Do you
only
get it from the shop in the refill market in Stony?
Yeah, the little one in the high street. And because it has little bits of charcoal in the cotton thread that are so and give your teeth a really good scrub. So actually, it may be £1 more, £1.50 more. Not that I buy more than one or two things of so not all green products are actually not as good as the alternative, and they're all out there. I recently found one sticks that were clearing drains, and they're an enzyme. So you drop
Oh,
stick.
the ecos. Yeah, I always wondered what that was about because I saw them, and I
Yeah,
was
very
going to.
cool idea.
I just put not vinegar. I do put vinegar, but also oh, what's it called? The powder.
Caustic soda.
Yeah, soda, crystal, about bicarb of soda. That's it. Sorry,
I like caustic soda. Yeah.
sorry. Brain fart. But you know, I always put that down the drain. Is that so? What do the enzyme sticks do?
They're like they're a replacement for that horrible bright orange declogger drain stuff.
Yeah.
That just who knows what they put in it, but it burns it out. And I used to have, I have. Well, I used to have 4 long-haired people in my house, and I only have 3 long-haired people in my house. None of the ones moved out. One just got a haircut. So weirdly
I was
enough,
about to ask. Yeah.
zinc declogger is a subject for me, and I used to feel bad about pouring the orange stuff down. And I found stick things, you just drop the stick down.
Yeah, and it sits in the bend, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those are all the small things. So next time, I mean, it's even next time when you're out shopping, and this is not you personally, because I know you do this, but anybody that's watching this is out shopping. Just pause for a nanosecond and look at that packaging that's on it, and think, well, actually, has that one got less packaging? Or maybe I buy a bigger size. If you can afford to buy a bigger size, you reduce packaging waste by about 70 or 80%. Because obviously not twice the size, etc., etc. So yeah, I think so. My message is: are we going to force people to change? No. We need to help people to change, and that's one of the tensions of climate action and climate activism. We feel all passionate. We want to bang the drum and shout it from the rooftops, but that'll just annoy our neighbors, and they'll never stop buying tubes of toothpaste and plastic toothbrushes. We have to be their friends. We have to tell them why. I made a just wonderful discovery today. I don't think I've got the browser open. No, I don't. It was a company that makes like plastic disposable cups, plates, fork, all those polystyrene things, all those horrible things. Everything made out of plants.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and it just looked like your normal plastic disposable cups and your plastic things. And I think the cutlery was pressed bamboo, actually. But
those things, yes, yeah. I've used them before.
The ones that blew me away because they just look like plastic cups. And I was searching for eco something else. I was thinking, why have I been served a thing with horrible plastic disposable cups? Yeah. And then when I read it, they're all made out of this plant-based plastic. And I thought, well,
as in sugar cane, I think it is something like that.
Yeah. So the point is, it's out there.
And you should ask for it as well. I remember the last time I had a coffee when COVID was taking a break, I think 2 years ago. I went out for a coffee with a friend safely, wearing masks and all. And I think I asked the guy behind the counter, I said, this doesn't look very sustainable, this, takeaway cup. He said, no, you're right, it isn't. We are, you're not the first one to mention it, but hopefully I will be one of the last people to mention it. But I think it's important to ask people about this. Can I have a more sustainable takeaway thing? It's like, why are you delivering this? Like at Costco, why are the donuts, bless their donuts and their cookies, but why are they in these single-use plastic containers? But they're recyclable. They shouldn't be a plastic. It's not getting recycled just because you put it in the recycling. We need to avoid it. So I think one of the things we can take away from today is don't be afraid to ask and demand it, as well as voting with your pocket and saying,
don't demand,
no, I'm going to buy the better product.
Yeah. Don't demand, ask nicely and smile. We want green climate people to have a really good reputation of being helpful people with nice suggestions. And the guy that I recommended the tooth floss to today, actually, we're having a chat about something that came up, and he's going to buy some. He actually ordered it while I was on
I
the
want to buy some now.
That's two people that aren't going to use plastic dental floss again. That's a win. You know, so
And the people who are watching this might be considering buying it as well, or might just try it out. I mean,
I'll have to remember the name of that the shop on Stony and the lovely French lady that runs it, because that's cool. Also, have you seen? I think it's down your neck of the woods. The Asda down.
Oh yes,
it's done all. It's got all
the stadium.
Yeah,
I actually wanted to write a blog post about it, and I've taken some photos, and it's sitting in my drafts folder. It's coming soon. I'm amazed because I sometimes go to that Asda when I get fed up with Tesco's and Aldi, and we have this massive Asda, which is I think the biggest one in Europe or whatever.
Yeah.
And say what you will about Walmart and whoever owns Asda now, but they really went all out to have it as a mini mall, if you will, like an American mall, I imagine. But you have aisles now that have these dispensers in them. I'm going to dig out the photo. I'm going to put it up. I swear I will do that with Jill's and Estelle's help. They have these. There's this big shelf. It's massive. That is just dispensers. And somebody asked me, but Axel, how do you buy this from a dispenser when you don't have a bucket or something to have your cereal in, or your sugar or your washing powder? I said, they have reusable bottles and containers to fill in your nut mix or your breakfast cereal and whatnot. And they even put smaller ones into the aisles. Like when you go for the pet food, they've got a small pet food one. When you go to the washing up or cleaning products one, they've got a smaller cleaning products one. It's amazing. They put a lot of thought into it, and it's main brand stuff as well. So it's not just the no brand, God knows where it comes from. It's main brands that you love and trust. Kellogg's or whatever are doing it in Unilever. And it's good to see that the big brands get behind it. So hopefully people use it. And it'll be interesting to get somebody from the project from Asta's side who's been involved in talk to them, or consumers. If you've been to that Asta or you've been to a refill market, let us know. I think it's a great idea. And I think it needs this jumping over your shadow and going like, yeah, I'm going to take my recycled bag with me shopping. I don't forget it, so I don't have to buy one for 10p. I take that with me, and I'm also going to take a few empty containers so I can buy the cereal or the washing powder. So I think there are, again, small things everybody can do. And again, if you're at an Asda or Tesco's and you run across a manager or supervisor or something, maybe ask them very nicely, or maybe send an email to Tesco's or other Asdas and shops exist, obviously, and say, I've seen this great thing. Can we have it in our local shop? And maybe the more people who do that, the more the demand grows on their kind of, I don't know how they measure that, but the more people ask kindly or nicely, as you put it, going, the more this will happen. So I think that's a good positive note to end the show on, almost.
I think it is. I think it's very positive now. And also, being at Valentine's Day, I'm going to go and see my lovely wife, who only saw me for a little while earlier. But yeah, thanks for having me back on. And
great to have you. Next week, I think we're with Jill, and hopefully one special guest. If you know anybody else who might be interested in sharing their story or their viewpoints on sustainability or climate action in general, please reach out. I endeavor to have a copy of this live stream up on my YouTube channel and obviously distribute through the blog and the social media by Wednesday. And I've also got some offline podcast style recordings, one with Pooleyville, which is an interesting set out a group of people who've come together in Milton Keynes and doing really amazing things. I've recorded that before. That's going to be released very shortly. So watch this space and reach out. I mean, this is supposed to be a discussion and a discourse. So please do be in touch. Don't be shy. I can see people watching this, which is great. I can see people watching the recordings, which is also great. So do give us a thumbs up on YouTube or wherever there's a thumb that you can click. Let us know that you like it, or a thumbs down if you don't like it. And whichever way, it would be great to hear from you. Gavin, it's been an absolute blast. Have a fantastic rest of your Valentine's Day, and I will see all of you next Monday.
Take care.